Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Forward Maryland from an undisclosed location within the state of Maryland, known as the Idea Lab. I'm Bill Woodcock.
And I'm Octave Lemongello.
No, that's
Oh,
not.
wait, second take. Oh, all right, ready? 3, 2, 1. I'm Jason Booms. All right, go ahead. We'll fix it in post.
I don't know if we do a post. We should do a during, but we don't. So, Jason, I don't know how your week is going, but perhaps your pocket is a wee bit lighter this week, as our very own County of Howard, in which we both reside, both in undisclosed locations, has enacted and is starting to enforce a 5 cent per bag plastic bag fee.
Mhm.
Some may even call it a tax. How has this affected you?
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to show you how it's affected me rather than just tell you.
Yeah, demonstrations are always more effective.
See, this is script writing 101. You gotta show. So this is the amount of change I have right now. This would be the amount of change I had without the bag tax. Need I say more? I mean, just think of all the shiny nickels that I could have that I no longer have access to. Buffalo nickels, none, because I got to use it to get plastic bags, which actually I'm fine with.
So what you're saying is that 1927D Buffalo nickel that is still an uncirculated condition and worth $78,000. That you would not be receiving that at, say, the Wild Lake Starbucks because, if you got your food and or beverage in a plastic bag,
Mm-hmm.
you would have to pay. That nickel would stay in the cash register, not your pocket.
Well, I mean, I did my job. I mean, granted, it came in the case, for verification purposes. I just handed it over to him. He can put that in the slot. Same thing with all those 1964 Morgan dollars I have. What am I supposed to do now?
Perhaps you could go into the walking stick business.
Actually, I was going to say Myers, but we don't have Myers down here. Walmart actually sells walking sticks.
Well, there you go. You could top them with silver dollars and sell them to as many James Bond villains as you can find. Contacts in that community.
I don't know though. I mean, I don't see Christopher Walken owning one though. But then again, he is older. Maybe he could use one now.
He could use one. And by the way, R.I.P. not just to Eddie Van Halen, who passed away today. But I unfortunately cannot remember the name of this gentleman. Perhaps a viewer or listener will remind us. But the man who played Drax in Moonraker died over the past weekend.
He did. Terrible villain, but a good actor. Well, granted, I mean,
we have one fewer James Bond villain amongst us. Although one would wonder, based on the tableau we saw about 24 hours ago, coming from the grounds of Walter Reed National Military Hospital, then to the second floor of the White House. Mm-hmm. So, Jason, the president has the coronavirus. Mm-hmm. He was tested positive on Thursday, unknown when his last negative test was. So it's possible he could have been, had the coronavirus and been infectious with it for several days thereafter. Was taken to Walter Reed with some complaints of and presenting some breathing difficulties, apparently needed supplemental oxygen. Not that uncommon, to be fair. And then released / said to let himself out on Monday. Jason, what the hell is going on?
Well, first of all, I mean, if you're going to give him anything, why not nitrous? You know, I would like to see him laugh like a human being laughs. I don't think I've ever heard Donald Trump laugh, which is odd. The broader point, you know, call me old fashioned. I don't like it when my presidents with nuclear capability at their fingertips are stoned. I don't understand why the 25th hasn't been invoked. I mean, I think now's as good a time as any for that sort of constitutional procedure to take place. I mean, I'm sure he's concerned that if he were to step aside, he may not get it back between now and January. But hey, uh, it seems like certain things need to be done instead of endangering the lives of the people around him and others. But who am I to say what's right or what's wrong in this upside down world?
Well, there's that's a very good question, and I don't quite know the answer, but I will say that there's a lot that's weird. So here's what I think is appropriate. This man is probably one of about five, if that many, people infected with coronavirus on the face of the earth who has received the treatment that he has received: the monoclonal antibodies, the remdesivir, the steroid that he received. And so he could, I mean, even with that extraordinarily assertive treatment, I still saw this man breathing through his mouth for a good minute at the top of the stairs when he got to the stairs of the White House. So, as a human being, the macho bit ain't playing. As president, the sympathy and care that I have that the leader of the free world is well goes out the window when the leader of the free world acts like an idiot and doesn't understand that his incapacity has serious and severe effects for our national security. And it's funny because I had a conversation on Sunday with a good friend wondering what was going to come out of this. And stupid, silly me, I thought I said, he can't possibly turn into this and pivot into another reason why not to be worried about coronavirus. Can he? That would be ridiculous. Like, I could still see him saying, we still need to open up, we still need to have the economy. Joe Biden would have been a failure at this, but yeah, people ought to wear masks, and not everybody has access to the resources I do. Except he didn't. Does the name, Jason, does the name Rodrigo Sierra mean anything to you?
Oh, Rodrigo, where do you start? Who is he?
So Rodrigo Sierra is a state legislator from the state of Arizona. He represents Arizona's 19th district, which is the western part of Phoenix and southwest of Phoenix. Mm-hmm. He's a Democrat. Mm-hmm. He too contracted the coronavirus over the weekend in the DC area. He's a 53-year-old man, same age as me. Mm-hmm. Rodrigo Sierra has now been not just admitted, but he's now on a ventilator at Johns Hopkins Hospital.
Oh, good. That is not good.
I don't think Rodrigo Sierra has access to not just all the all-star doctors, but the all-star, incredible, heroic treatment that this man is getting, that the President of the United States is getting and is continuing to get. So for him to say, and for him to make what few public statements he's been making, other than I believe, steroid-fueled tweet storm on Monday with such classics as Space Force vote, it's hard, other than that, it's hard for me to really have any more sympathy. we don't need to hear about how tough he is. We don't need to hear about how we can beat coronavirus. We don't need to hear that it's not any worse than the flu, and the flu kills lots of people. So let's just suck it up, buttercups. That is an injustice to the 210,000 and more people, not to mention the 7.5 million Americans who have gotten this disease.
And
It's
have long-term health issues as a result.
Yeah, it's an effrontery to his office. It is a lack of realization of his own privilege. And then, and this is dovetailing a little bit towards our next topic of discussion, the vice president, who is supposedly the head of the coronavirus task force, who I believe is going to be the next to show up infected, doesn't want to have a plexiglass partition between himself and Senator Harris for their debate tomorrow night. This is maybe the most, there have been many points in Trump's presidency that have made me angry. This is maybe the one that makes me the most disappointed, because this has the most opportunity for a teachable moment out of the Trump administration that there's ever been. And no, I don't expect him to become Ebenezer Scrooge on Christmas morning and say, I was wrong all along, I'm going to do these things differently.
That would be scary if that happened. That would be very scary.
That would be steroid mania. If that, but what I do expect would be a recognition of your own presence and your own space. And he doesn't seem capable of that.
Self-awareness doesn't seem to be his strong suit. And that's an understatement. Another thing too is, I mean, yeah, the whole idea of where's the badassery in wheezing like he is. I mean, this is something he totally brought upon himself. So, I mean, you can't, I guess in the sense of, well, he had bad luck perhaps, but then again, that luck was really caused by his ignoring a grave public health crisis. I mean, I would feel the same way if someone were to lick the railings up and down, what's a long metro, DuPont, you know, and they get a cold. Oh my God, how did that happen? But I mean, it's basically what he did. And you know, when you take a look at Trump and Pence, rugged individualists they are, absolutely. It's, you know, these aren't badasses. These aren't, you know, there's nothing admirable about them. You know, it's just, you know, folks from Michigan, you know, blue collar folks would be looking at these guys like they're nothing. You know, they're just two punks. I mean, why are we giving them any credence? But you know, here we are, and you know, I just hope that you know, enough eyes are open that, you know, real that you know, that there's no real leadership there, and this is all self-induced, and it can be fixed, most importantly, by going the right way.
This is true. This is true. And one last thing I will say about this is, you know, this is why now this lead is 14 and 16 points, because people are having their Trump fatigue 4 years early. And this is the problem of being out there every day and being more and more and more and more ridiculous. You know, people have just had enough. There's only so many lies. It's baked in the pie. The people who support him and the people who like him, no matter what, you saw them down there at Walter Reed. By the way, all the Republican parties, both state and local in Maryland, were egging people on to get down to Walter Reed to make a show for the president. So let's not say this was any big grassroots showing. And you know, I mean, the phoniness. I mean, 2 days after, you know, his first video where he said, I'm so thankful for the almost universal and bipartisan show of support, and I won't forget it. You know, then 2 days later, or 3 days later, he pulls the rug out on stimulus talks again, which shoots his precious Dow Jones average down 500 points. Much more importantly, it's probably going to lead to that many more personal bankruptcies, businesses going out of business, more people losing their jobs, and more stress on state and local governments as they keep extending out their safety net for another month or two or three. So, what he's doing, is not just hurting himself, because as a human being, he's not out of the woods of this thing yet.
Oh, no.
But he's actually found a way to hurt the country through his own illness. And wow, having had presidents who had heart attacks in office, suffered from polio, suffered from other debilitating diseases, cancer, Alzheimer's. This is just astounding.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at it historically. I mean, you look at your bad presidents, it was usually a moral failing, or, which we can also go into in the current situation, or presidents who didn't believe they had the constitutional authority to do certain things, like Buchanan. Buchanan honestly didn't believe he had the power to hold the Union together before the Civil War broke out. We have a president that's aggressively trying to kill Americans. And by the way, we haven't even talked about the bounty on American soldiers. That got pushed to the side because that was like a million years ago, when it was really like, what, how many days has it been since that news?
I think it was about 60 days ago.
Oh my God. But it's, he's such a reprehensible person. It just, I am increasingly, by the way, of the opinion we might actually see something along the lines of, I'm not going to say the L word, but I mean, just looking at the poll data, I mean, it would seem to indicate a fairly sizable victory if the election were being held today. I'll add those caveats. I mean, you see poll data where the women are breaking 2-1. We might actually have a situation where white women actually vote a plurality for the Democratic nominee for president. I mean, there's, I think there's hope in the numbers, but given how this year goes, how can you really have a lot of hope?
Right. Yeah, well, the election odds and polls and numerology of this, numerology was not the right word, but that is a topic for another show. And
it's all phrenology these days. You really got to get to the skull.
Yes, we need to channel our inner Nate Silvers at another time. But for now, you mentioned the 60 or so days since the Russian bounty on American soldiers has been mentioned, which is zero. I mean, that means they've mentioned it no times. We do have a chance to hear this tomorrow night for the vice presidential debate. I would say if it goes off, what do you think? I mean, first off, I mentioned it during the other segment. What do you think? I mean, if the Pence campaign continues to suck wind and object to the Harris camp putting a plexiglass screen, a piece of plexiglass between the two of them, does the debate go on at all?
Mm-hmm. Well, oh, Mike Pence getting so worked up over a divider. God, there's ways I could go with it.
Jason, I'm surprised he didn't bring it up, because he's going to be at least like 12 feet away from another woman. Mm-hmm. And mother gets upset at that.
It should be fun. I mean, we're heading into the most inconsequential vice presidential debate of all time. I mean, it's what's good. Is everyone paying attention?
John Kennedy moment?
I mean, Pence is boxed in. Kamala's going to do whatever she does, and we know she's on her worst day. She's a capable debater. On her best day, she'll be really strong. I mean, I don't want to set up expectations. Oh my God, I forgot. Mike Pence is a verbal acrobat. He's amazing. Okay, expectation set. But no, it'll be fine. But who's going to pay attention? I mean, with the big story focused on, I mean, Trump, if one thing, he does draw the energy to him. Biden, draws energy to him as the nominee. I mean, who's going to really care? They're both going to come out with probably good performances. Let's say maybe Pence stumbles a couple of times because he has to support the administration's record. Good luck. I mean, it's hard to imagine there being real news coming out of it. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that, first off, I think if the Pence campaign keeps screwing around, I think that the Dems should walk. I think you have to stay true to the principles. The Dems are believing in science, believing in, public health. And if the Republicans are not going to provide an environment that's respectful of the science and of the public health, I think there's no debate. I think that's plain and simple. Yeah. Assuming the debate happens, and I actually think it will, because I think Pence will cave. And I shouldn't even say cave. It should just be common sense. Yeah. This has all the earmarks of, and I'm trying to think of an example, but this has all the earmarks of a fighter who is against the ropes when the bell rang, sitting in the corner, and they can't get all the cobwebs out of his head before the bell rings for the next round, and he goes out there and takes about six punches, and then he's down, and then the fight's over. I think that, and again, feeding back to the last thing we talked about, I think the Democrats are smelling blood in the water, and that this is the opportunity to finish it off and focus on fighting whatever election challenges there are, and focusing on what those next 2.5 months are going to look like between the election and the inauguration, because they will kind of have to be the president and the vice president during that time, because there will be no maturity come November the 4th. There will be no grown-up. I think that she's going, I mean, Biden didn't have his best day. And in terms of pure argument, he did much better than Trump. Mm-hmm. There is no compelling reason to argue the next 4 years of Trump-Pence. The president has never articulated this.
Oh, but Kimberly Guilfoyle has the best is yet to come. Following, of course, a well-timed thigh massage. I'm sorry, what?
Oh, Kimberly, we never knew ye.
I've got some pictures I want to show you. Hold on a second.
As a complete side note, are they now selling Utz potato chips in LA, in California? I'm astounded at this.
They are?
Anyway, there's Utz advertising at Dodger Stadium.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm loving that. Mm-hmm. But because Utz are the best. But anyway.
Better made chips. Those are the ones.
Never had. Anyway, back to the focus on this. I don't see, Biden handled Trump without much trouble. Trump is much more, Pence is not as verbally, as you said, acrobatic. He's not exactly a flying Wallenda of the tongue.
He's not a cunning linguist.
No, that's for sure. And Mother would attest to that. and Kamala is a much better orator than Joe Biden, and a much better debater at this point relatively in their careers than Joe Biden. So unless if Pence is going to start throwing out factoids and figuroids and obscure little bits from when Harris was a prosecutor in Northern California, Yeah, but Jason, you and I have had this discussion before when discussing the vice presidential candidates. Nobody is going to beat Harris in the debate by going to her left.
Yeah.
So she obviously is going to talk about her record and talk about mixing justice with, law and order, which may or may not be true. But there's no way that she doesn't out substance and out style him tomorrow by a wide margin. And then that leaves it to one more presidential debate on the 15th, where if you look at their recent town hall performances, I mean, Trump in front of George Stephanopoulos and Biden at MSNBC with Lester Holt last night, I think we know how that's going to go.
The one thing I'm curious about is if Kamala Harris, if her messaging reflects a base strategy and she just focuses on themes of importance to, the most serious Democratic voters, or whether she starts articulating narratives that sound more appropriate to bring over some of the swing states. That's what I'm curious about. Because if they think they can see 400, or at least 370 electoral votes, I wonder if her messaging will shift a little bit.
I'm going to think the latter. Mm-hmm. And I know that upsets some people, and I get it. But I think they see a lot more in play now. I mean, Arizona is now going out to high single digits to 10. I think they see Florida as a state that can be wrapped up, North Carolina as something that can be wrapped up. Ohio, I think Iowa is a possibility. I mean, Georgia, has too much Jim Crow-y, voting. Thanks, Brian Kemp, about that. But frankly, if it were a free and fair election in Georgia, I think the Dems would be ahead. And lovely of Greg Abbott in Texas to screw over people's rights to ballot access in that great state. But I think Texas would be an eyelash, which is okay because they can be had 4 years from now. But I really do think that, again, and this speaks to my November 4th strategy, leave no doubt.
Exactly.
Leave no doubt that there is a convincing winner of the election, because the only way that Trump can fight this in the courts, in the Supreme Court, especially with a Justice Barrett on the court, would be to argue individual states' policies and procedures with respect to their electioning. So what we would be looking at would be Bush v. Gore times about 6.
Can you imagine? And then plus, I mean, chances are, if it's a situation like that, I mean, I hate to say it, but you have to imagine we're going to see more than the Polo riot that they did when they tried to break into various, Secretary of State's offices down in Florida in 2000. You might have actually some real street action going on against the backdrop of illegal proceedings in multiple states. That would just be unheard of, and it would be traumatic.
Well, that's right. And what will we have? We will have a president who loses the election saying the election was stolen. My people found thousands of ballots for Trump from military in the rivers. And then we will have a putative president-elect who will say, the election happened, I won, we have to be grown-ups and we have to be Americans now. We're going to have a hell of a November, at least.
Yeah. Sounds about right, unfortunately. Which is why I visit the following prep sites. SHTF, come on down.
Oh, boy. And now and then again, there's local politics.
Perfect transition.
No, definitely not, because I just kind of thought of anarchy. And there are people who do believe that there will be unrest in the suburbs and the rural areas. Really? What? I mean, I think everybody who has an Xbox, has one. But in our own county of Howard, we have, where do we go? I mean, I think that our Board of Education races deserve half a mention, especially as we had the bizarro world, especially as Jason is wearing the T-shirt for the candidate he supports
What?
in the 4th district. And for those of you who
My
are
goodness,
listening,
I am wearing this Jen Mallow T-shirt.
who is that for, Jason?
You mean Jen Mallow?
That would be Jen Mallow, the candidate, one of the candidates, and one of the 3 candidates. And by the way, we have interviewed all 3 of those candidates
Yes, we have.
in the 4th council district race for Board of Education. We have the famous, not really famous, but non-famous, just kind of ridiculous, Larry Pretlow, candidate in the 2nd district, who dropped out of the race, and then Hart in 88 comes back and says he's back in the race.
Mhm.
Of course, only about 4 days after pretty much everybody I know in Howard County received their ballot. And not that I was going to vote for him anyway, but after I already cast mine.
Mhm.
So I don't know how much we need to talk about that, Jason, but then the Howard County Council passed something called CB 51 last night. And CB 51, which passed by a 3-2 margin, council members Young, Walsh, and Mercer Rigby voting for, council members Youngman and Jones voting against, would abolish the roughly $2 million a year contract that the Howard County has with ICE. What do you make about what's going on in this burg?
Well, my takeaway on this, and by the way, just a very quick aside on the District 2 race, I would like to talk to all my good friends at Howard County Neighbors United. I fucking told you so. Anyway, on to 51.
By the way, who are your good friends in Howard County Neighbors United?
I have 0 friends in the group. Thanks, friends. Nobody.
This lady who does teddy bear filters for her picture while she calls people words such as retarded, slow, moronic, a-holes, and all those other things.
Oh, what a charmer. No, actually, I don't even know who you're speaking of. I think I do. Maybe I do. But I haven't even noticed the her little icon. So, okay.
Oh.
Yeah, well, that's sort of typical for the group, I guess.
Anyway, I guess she's a furry racist.
Oh, God. And that'll be a subject of Ford Maryland Nights when we explore that topic. Gotta get my ascot.
Black light. Let's go.
But so question 51. You know what? My takeaway on it was I would vote yes for it, but angrily, because I really think the move is abolishing ICE. I'd like to have energy focused on that. I think we're just shifting a problem as opposed to solving a problem. And I know there are some folks who have immigration law backgrounds, and I'm not, denigrating their years of experience. But what I am saying is I don't think Howard County should be in the ICE business. So therefore, I was glad that there was the yes vote from 3 members. Disappointed that Dr. Jones voted no, and disappointed to hear that County Executive Ball will be plans on vetoing it. So that's my take. How about yours?
Well, I happen to live in District 2, same as Dr. Jones, a guest and friend of this show. God knows he got in trouble for being on this show. But I would have voted for this. And I'm confused. I do have confusion at the county executive's pledge to veto this legislation. And I guess what I'm hearing from both the Jones and Ball camps are that they're working on something better. and that something better is going to come along. So this is a little bit curious, and I did think to myself, now where have I heard this before? And we heard similar about, 5 years ago when a former county councilman from District 1 voted with a voted along the lines of a county executive of the opposite party, voted the way he wanted in terms of the legislation, which ironically, then Councilman Ball was a co-sponsor of legislation to make Howard County a sanctuary county.
The old
So
CB9, right?
What's that?
The old CB9, right?
CB9. And Councilman Weinstein had said at the time that his intention was to work with then County Executive Kittleman to create something better, because we could do all this through administrative works and we could do all this through other ways. We don't need to have all this division. Those administrative works and other ways never materialized. And I do believe that I do, in all honesty, I mean, I have more reason to believe that Councilman Jones and County Executive Ball will stay to their word, more so than those other two guys did. But I'm still very interested and curious, and I know they both watch this show or listen to it. I would love to have one or both of them come on and talk about what they're planning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, because I do think at a certain point, I mean, we need to hear the actual concrete agenda for resolving this issue. I'm always leery of politicians, even good public servants, when they pass up something saying, "Oh, we have a better solution." I mean, okay, Nixon had a plan to end the Vietnam War, and that didn't really work out as well as he had hoped. So I don't know. At this point, I think this just buys Dr. Jones an increasing likelihood that he'll be primaried. Sort of the same for County Executive Ball, but to a much lesser extent, seeing as how he's, I think it's still in the good graces with much of the party. Although I'm not sure if you saw it or not, but the Columbia Democratic Club had a bit of a critical post they made about County Executive Dr. Ball regarding his take on that. So I was a little bit surprised to see that.
Yeah, the venerable Columbia Democratic Club, which is now entering in fact, its sixth decade, has taken a little bit of a leftward turn, actually, with this year's slate of officers, with the election of Jake Burdett, who's a good young man who we should interview him on this show in the near future. Mm-hmm. As the president, and our friend Cynthia Fights, mm-hmm, of the Fighting 4th District as the vice president. So it's going to be very interesting to see what comes from the activist base in Howard County as we zoom towards state elections in 2022. Speaking of which, Jason, we didn't talk about this in the pre-show, but getting back to our opening issue, our opening talk about the president and his COVID, none other than 2022 gubernatorial candidate Robin Ficker, he of the cut Maryland state sales tax by 2 cents, that would be from 6% to 4%, was down at Walter Reed this past weekend, shaking hands, kissing babies, handing out his literature, and of course, not masking. What say you to that foolishness?
I've seen so many pictures of him posing with random folks, and it looks like Ocean City. He seems to be very fond of posting there. I never thought highly of him, probably to the surprise of many. One of the reasons why I never really bothered to learn his name correctly. Although I keep thinking of Jeffrey Feiger, who ran for governor in Michigan. He was Dr. Kevorkian's attorney. But fun guy. His brother was actually the lead singer of the Knack. So, there's a bit of history. But getting back to the issue, the guy's an idiot. He's going to lose. What else is there? I guess that's it. That's all I really have to think about him. I mean, but it's just, yeah, the fact that he's posing a health risk to the citizenry, I would think would be held against him in 2022. But I guess we'll see what happens.
I mean, I tend to think that Brother's going to get blown out of the water in the Republican primary as soon as Kelly Schultz enters the race, because she's by far the Republican frontrunner. But I would also have to imagine, I mean, his other claim to fame was having had a career for many years as a heckler at Washington Bullets / Wizards games.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I understand that the league is in the bubble, but I mean, isn't there like a youth league he could heckle? Maybe a 50 and over. I mean, I know of a 50 and over softball league in Howard County that could use a heckler. I mean, why? I mean, it just doesn't seem to be the most productive use of his time.
King to Rook 4. You call that a move? Yeah, it seems like he'd be doing anything else to be more productive use of his time. Heckling a snooker match, for example. Do they call them matches in snooker?
I believe that they do.
Okay, all right.
I believe that they do. And snooker would be about it. I mean, do they do snooker in a bubble? I mean, this sounds like, snooker in a bubble sounds like, some late night German show that should be on. Yeah, we shall now have snooker in the bubble.
All just yellowed walls and yellowed walls and 70s shag carpet. I mean, that's what you want in a sport.
And Robin Ficker heckling.
Like, where did I go wrong in life that I'm doing this now on ESPN 12?
Oh, well, Jason, we've hit it all. We did a little state. By the way, in all seriousness, I do know that there is much bigger state news. I do understand that there will be. I am not at liberty to discuss, but I am of good report that the field for governor shall be joined by serious candidates, not Robin Fickers, by the end of 2020. So
pretty exciting.
Late breaking news here, and more to come.
Can you tell us D side or R side, or not yet?
I'm talking about D side.
All right, that'll be big news. Oh, we almost forgot though. There is one good thing that the county council did without reservation.
Oh yes. Can I forget this?
The Racial Equity Task Force, 4-1 vote, everyone but Youngman voting in favor of it. So I think that's a step in a positive direction.
I would wholeheartedly agree. And I know we've already gotten ourselves in trouble with people from our earlier comments. Those jerks, we're not going to listen to them anyway. But no, the Racial Equity Task Force is a great idea. Not just a great idea, it's a great advance forward. We're big on that word here, for Howard County, just as the creation of the diversity and inclusion position in the Howard County public school system, which I remember, I believe, was referred to by some genius on your favorite news group, Howard County Neighbors United, as a useless waste of time where everyone can join hands and sing Kumbaya.
Real progressive values over there.
Wish some people would just wrap their Escalades around trees. And just keep them.
So fascism alive and well. Sorry, go ahead.
How do you make a 6-figure salary and become a fascist?
Well, there were a lot of well-to-do ones in Germany. I guess they found the administration to be conducive to their economic interests. So.
This is what I get for never having taken a political science class. Any final thoughts, Jason?
No, I've got none. Nothing at all.
I too have none. I have had many extra.
Mhm.
And my mind races, yet also at the same time stays in the same place. It is like a treadmill. Well, we will come at you. We will come at you. That is the right term. With another edition. Coming at you. Let me tell you something, brother.
Oh shit, this is new. I can't wait.
Oh, yeah, not that shirt.
No.
But we will be coming at you with another edition of Forward Maryland this coming weekend. So for Jason Booms, I'm Bill Woodcock. Thank you for watching and or listening to this edition of Forward Maryland. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.